Welcome back, everyone. Let's talk about Tampers. The Tamper is sort of the quintessential barista tool, and as such, there's many different styles and varieties. I might have all of them. I might have a problem. Let's not dwell too much on that. Um, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the different Tamper styles that are available, what I use, and what I would recommend you use. So first up, we have this 58 millimeter, pretty much standard tamper. This one came with my Rancilio Silvia, and it's a nice tamper. It's got a decent heft to it, which is something that I appreciate when it comes to tampers. It weighs in around 300, 400 grams-ish. It's made out of, well, the base is obviously steel. The handle is some kind of plastic. And it's a 58 millimeter flat bottom tamper. It's a decent start. When it comes to tampers of this sort of class, the 58 millimeter flat bottoms, there's a lot of different tampers to choose from, and what you're getting for your money is basically design. For example, what material the handle is made out of, precision in manufacturing, and weight. How much weight you want in a tamper is a personal choice. I prefer them to be on the heavier side, but that's up to you. So when I started my espresso journey, I was concerned about my ability to tamp straight, that is, to push the puck down in a straight fashion. And in order to remedy that, I got this. This is a push tamper. It's also 58 millimeters, also flat bottomed, from JoeFrex. And what's the idea behind this? Well, the idea is that you just set the depth, and then you can just push down into your portafilter basket. And because of this rim here, it's basically impossible for it to tamp crooked. Now, would I recommend you using this? Well, probably not. I've used this one maybe 4 times. It's a hassle. And let me tell you why. So in order to use this, you first need to set the tamping depth. And you do that by screwing on parts here and adjusting it. And then there's many different ways of doing this. And if you're like me, you're probably using different coffees and different grind settings. And it's not like you're going to be pulling 15 shots in a row with the same settings. If you're working in a cafe, this is probably excellent. I don't work in a cafe, and as such, the adjustments on this one is just not good. It does not work well in my workflow. I imagine if you're in like a cafe and you're not using something like a puck press, using a palm tamper is probably a good idea, but for me, no. Next up, we have this. And this is not a tamper. This is a distributor tool. And the sort of granddaddy of this style of distributor tools was the OCD, or the Ona Coffee distributor. And the idea here is basically that you put this in your portafilter and you spin it, and these sort of fins will help distribute the upper layers of the coffee puck, and it will provide you with a flat surface to tamp on. Now, why am I bringing this up in a video about tampers? Well, because I hear some people like to use this instead of a tamper. So basically what they do is they set the depth pretty deep, and they just distribute, and then they don't do anything else. I've never had success doing this, so I cannot recommend it, but I hear some people like it. I don't know why. Also, there is a discussion about whether or not this is actually a good tool to get good distribution of your coffee, and it seems like the answer is no, but I'm gonna do a more in-depth video on that at some later point. I would definitely not recommend using this as a tamper, and perhaps not for distribution. Who knows? Next up, we have this. And this looks just like that one, doesn't it? Well, it sort of does, except this is 58.5 millimeters instead of 58 millimeters. Now, why would you want a 58.5 millimeter tamper? Isn't 58 millimeters so standard for portafilters? At least for commercial style machines? It is and it isn't. So This is the portafilter from my Rancilio Silvia. I'm using the stock basket in here. And if you're using the stock basket on a Rancilio Silvia, you are supposed to use a 58mm tamper. That's what fits. But if, for example, you're using a IMS basket, or any other sort of precision or competition style basket, 58mm is not a good fit. You need a 58.5 or thereabouts tamper. Otherwise, you're not going to get down into the edges of the puck. And that can cause donut channeling, which is not a good thing, and that will sort of prevent you from getting a good cup of coffee. So if you're using competition baskets or precision baskets, 58.5 is the way to go. Now, how do you know the size of the basket you're using? Is it perhaps that all stock baskets are 58mm and only third-party baskets are 58.5? Well, no. See, this is the tamper that came with my Lelit Bianca. This is actually 58.55mm, and that's because the Lelit Bianca stock baskets are precision baskets. So really the lesson here is to find out what sort of tamper you're supposed to use with your machine. This is a really nice tamper, by the way. It's quite heavy, and yeah, it's high precision. It's a good tamper. Finally, there's my latest addition to the tamper family. This is the decent tamper, which is sort of special because it has this thing. This is a leveling tamper. Now, as you might recall, this is also a level tamper. This one, on the other hand, doesn't have all the problems that the other one had. So the way this works is you have your portafilter, you rest it here, and then you push it down. And there's a sleeve up in here. Let me actually just disassemble it, and I'll show it to you. There's a sleeve here, which guides the tamper down. And then there's a spring that'll give even resistance down and make sure that this disc comes back once you're done tamping. This means that this tamper acts like a piston. And it's a piston that can only go straight down because you're resting this disc on the rim of the portafilter. So it's impossible to tamp crooked with this one. If you're looking at this level tamper, this does not actually necessarily solve the issue of tamping straight, because you see, it's quite possible to insert it sideways and then tamp down. This would result in more coffee beans being on this side of the portafilter. That's an unusual scenario, but it's possible. Another thing about this tamper is, like I said, it has a spring. That technically makes it a pressure tamper. Now, that is not important because pressure tampers are not particularly good. There is a good reason to have a spring in this, and that is to reset this disc. But all this talk about tamping with exactly 30 pounds of pressure doesn't seem like it makes a big difference. Just tamp down until the puck doesn't move anymore, and you'll be good. This spring actually is not a 30-pound spring, it's a 15-pound spring, which works fine. You don't need to use exactly 30 pounds of force. It's be anywhere in that realm and you're good. So yeah. Now, which sort of tamper would I recommend? Well, I would recommend that you go with a self-leveling tamper. Tamping straight is important. This actually solves that problem. If you're using competition baskets, I would strongly recommend that you go with a 58.5-ish tamper. This is actually 58.45. They're all slightly different. It doesn't matter that much. And the decent tamper is a good choice. In this category, there's also other tampers like the Cafetech Lev Tamp, which is nice. I would actually sort of have preferred that because the Lev Tamp is available with a walnut handle, which is something that I would definitely enjoy considering the walnut trimmings on my Bianca. But it turned out that shipping for the Tamper was around $150, which is about the price of the Tamper itself, and I just did not feel it was worth that much. Now, both the Decent Tamper and, like I said, the Live Tamp are quite expensive. They're both around $120 to $150. And there are cheaper alternatives. There are still self-leveling tampers available at things like Amazon or AliExpress. And if you don't want to spend $150 on a tamper, which I can totally understand if you don't, you should probably take a look at those. Just make sure you're getting one with good manufacturing tolerances, because that actually matters. I mean, the difference between 0.5 millimeter is the difference between donut channeling and not when using a competition basket. So make sure you're getting something that's at least high quality. And there is one more thing that I haven't really touched upon here, and that is tamper geometry. So all of the tampers that I've shown are flat tampers. That means this surface here is flat, and that is by far the most common tamper geometry. There are other tamper geometries, for example, concave and convex tampers or ripple tampers, which are concave, convex, and have ripples respectively. I've never tried one of those, and from what I've heard, that's mostly an idea that's now considered outdated. So modern tampers are all flat-based because that is what gives you the best extraction. But like I said, I have not had any personal experience with other tamper geometries. So I suppose your mileage may vary, but that's just what I've been reading. That's it for this time. What sort of tamper are you using, and what do you think about it? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like it, comment on it, share it to your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content. Thanks!